Welcome to this week's piece. I actually have two of these. It is a set. Kind of modeled after the French Provincial style, but a little more rustic and bulky. They're very interesting and I super love them. So to start off, I'm just tightening the legs. They were just a smidge wobbly, so I wanted to make sure that they were tightened up before I started my painting. And then of course they got a good cleaning with liquid sandpaper because you know I love this stuff. And then when I do liquid sandpaper, I also use a Scotch-Brite pad just to give it a little extra, it's not really a sanding, but it scuffs up the surface just a little bit more than just using the liquid sandpaper. So I wanted to keep the tops of these wood and just redo them, except I found out that underneath is particle board. And I'm trying to show you here a couple bumps where it's swelled up underneath, so I can't sand those down. They'll go straight to the particle board, and then right there another chip was taken out. And I can see exposed particle board there too. So tops have to get painted now, which was a little bit sad, but that's all right. So I'm using my wood filler just to fix that one spot, and then it'll be ready for paint. And then I'm going over with just a sanding sponge to just smooth out any of the finish that was failing on the top. The finish everywhere else was in great condition. Just there was a few spots on the top that needed to get smoothed out just so that we can have a good priming surface. And of course I am priming the top with 2 layers of my 123. The rest of the body I just did 1 coat, but I did want to make sure that the top got 2 because there is that particle board underneath and these are going to be well-used tables. I wanted to make sure that they had extra protection from people setting, classes on them without coasters, because for whatever reason people do that. So I always use the gray. It's light enough to paint white over the top of it, so it doesn't ever make any sense for me to also have white. So I always just buy the gray kind. So here's my favorite wallpaper, like favorite. I use it all the time. It is a really easy thing to decoupage with, so this is a great beginner option because you can cut everything to size. It's thick enough and sturdy enough that you can reposition it once you get it stuck down, assuming it's wet. So I just cut this to an approximate size, and then I will use my fingernail to glide up the edges, and that will give me a line of demarcation there to use with my scissors that I can cut it to get a perfect fit inside the piece. This wallpaper I apply with poly. You can also apply it with wallpaper paste, either or. You just want to make sure that you have enough down that your edges won't ever lift, because this is not like tissue paper wherein it comes up through the bottom and then you also layer it over the top to where it kind of lives in the piece after that. Wallpaper is always kind of a separate entity. Now it's wipeable and everything from the top, this particular kind is, so I'm not worried about that, but I do worry about lifting. So I'm going around the edges a little more heavily with the poly than I would typically. Now I'm adding a little bit to the back of the paper. This step isn't necessary if you have too much. It actually just kind of helps with the rolling of the wallpaper as it's trying to roll back up. It just kind of helps it smooth out a little more easily. And I literally just use my hands. If I come across any bubbles, I can just lift up and squish it back down. It's not a big deal. And then I'll use my little blade to clean around any edges that are sticking up just a little too high that I didn't get quite perfect on the dry fit. And then I'll also make kind of just 2 X cuts through the hardware holes to make sure that I have those ready to go for when the hardware is ready to go on. I'm wiping back the poly with a baby wipe. I keep just packages of those things on hand all the time. I always have use for those. And then the hardware, I did a fun little blend, silver in the middle, gold on the outside. And here are my paint colors. So I already did the first one, and I'm kind of using it as a reference point for the second one. They will never be exactly the same because I am human, but I can get them pretty close. So for these, because you will see all the angles of the legs, I start them out upside down. They're curvy and bowed out, and you'll just kind of see all the angles of them from any way you look at them. So I want to make sure that I get all around 360 degree, a good blend without any weird things that I missed from it just being right side up. So I'm starting with these upside down. It makes the most sense for me. My top color, which will end up being my bottom color, is Iron Gate, and then I'm blending that into Steel. It's a super easy blend, and I just go back and forth with these two colors. I'm going through pretty quickly on this first coat because you guys know the first coat doesn't really matter. It's a placement coat. And then I'm just doing a little highlight with dark khaki around this. I really, really like this color in this piece. It just sets everything apart. It's so lovely. But it's kind of going to get hidden with the steel once I go back in with that to blend that in. And you'll just subtly see it, and it will be awesome. And these are colors that I just kind of like to match the wallpaper with, so that's how I chose my colors. And then as you can see, I just do up and down strokes, back and forth, and then slowly go up and down the piece as needed. Adding water when I need to add water. You kind of get the feel for when you need to add water as you start doing this. If your paint starts dragging or sticking or anything like that, add a little spray of water. And this way, as you can see, I can kind of work around all the angles with it upside down. And then I can make sure I'm getting underneath all the lips of the tables as well, because I don't like turning something upside down and seeing missed spots. It's not a good look. And with these little tables, it's more likely that someone's going to see this rather than on a large dresser. So I just want to make sure that my stuff is well done. The sides, I just did a base of light gray, which is the most similar color to the background of the wallpaper. And then I did the dark khaki along the center portion, which is really easy to blend in. And then I added a little steel and a little bit of the Iron Gate around the edges for some depth. And I'm just kind of deciding here how I want things to look. As you can see, I'm not too particular about my brushes getting dirtied up with another color. I'm totally fine with it because it just helps my blending process. You will find your own ways to blend, and honestly, each piece is different for me. I almost never do it the same way. Some things I do, some things I don't. It always just depends on the kind of blend that I want and how I want the finish to be. It changes all the time. There's so many different ways to blend, and they all come in handy. So this is the back section, and this is actually how I did the top as well. I just did a solid base coat of the light gray, and then I just kind of blobbed in other colors and then went over them it's kind of like a mottled blend to get them in. And I love this kind of blend because it doesn't ever have to be perfect. It's just getting it on, and you've got a myriad of colors, and it looks just so pretty. And then around the wallpaper that I have on here, I did something just that's super, super easy as well. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just taking similar colors next to the wallpaper where I have like the flowers or the leaves next to the actual piece. And I will blot those colors on there and then kind of blend them out. So it's kind of a watery type thing. It's not perfect, and it's not meant to be. So you don't have to worry about trying to paint in another leaf or paint in another flower to make it match. It just kind of helps the colors be not such a harsh transition from the wallpaper to the side of the table. Now we are in the second coat, which is the final coat for this piece, and I decided to do these on their sides, so again I could have a full view of the leg as I went up, because it's really important to make sure you can see all the sides of it, because you'll be able to see all the sides of it when it's in somebody's house. So I'm starting with the Iron Gate again, kind of getting it a little higher than where I want it to end so that I have a place to blend the steel into. And then I'm actually skipping really quickly up to the dark khaki and going around that edge there. because the steel is the one that I'm blending into those two colors, and I'm working so quickly that the iron gate will still be wet when it's time to blend. But this way I'm not having to go back and forth with the steel and back down into it. I can blend them kind of both at the same time. What's great about this table is there's so many different parts, like the leg itself sticks out from the side edges, and then there's the lip around the bottom edge to the top. So there's a lot of breaking points in my blend where I don't have to worry about it being so perfect over a large surface area. These pieces are really great for this because sometimes it's hard to do super large surface areas and have it be perfect, where working in smaller sections like this where you have all those break points, it just makes your life so much easier. So right now I'm using the steel brush. I've just been going back and forth with that, and I'm going down into the iron gate. And then I will take my iron gate brush and kind of blend that back up into the steel, and that will be good. And then to finish this out, I'm taking a clean, dry brush, and I'm actually just lightly, like Bob Ross says, 2 hairs and some air. That's how I'm blending the last of the colors together. So any spots that I just felt like weren't perfectly blended, I went over it with this brush and just very lightly transitioned it, and then I would clean it off on my drop cloth. Just swirled it around, cleaned off the brush, and went back in and finished blending. You can also add more water when you're ready. Do not add any more paint during this time. You're just adding a little bit of water to help the colors move back around again, and then you will get the loveliest blend ever. And of course, this is the same process that I showed before in the first coat. I'm just going over the whole section in the light gray because this makes for an easier blend process. So you can see me covering up the old blend that I had there, but that's just because it makes the whole thing easier to blend. So I'm going over everywhere with the gray, and then I'm going in just like before with the colors that kind of match-ish with the wallpaper, and then going back over it with the same brush and smoothing it in, just blending it out. Again, these are kind of like watercolory blends, just very soft, subtle, but they just create such a beautiful finish. I couldn't love it more. And like I said, the wallpaper is fully wipeable, so I just have my baby wipe. Anytime I got paint over the edge where I didn't want it, I just wiped it off. Then of course, between every coat and obviously before I do my sealing, I go over and do a light sand. This is just brushing over the piece with a sanding block. This is not actually sanding. It's just smoothing out anything that possibly got stuck in it, or, you know, any fuzzies, anything like that, and gives you just a very nice finish at the end. So here's a fun thing. I'm taking my Chalk Mountain Satin Poly and their Shimmer White Glazing Dust and mixing that together, and that is what I'm using to seal the piece. The white shimmer dust is just like the prettiest nothing ever. I'm trying to show you. I think this did a pretty good job at showing how just lovely it is. I can't tell you enough. Just adding some of this to your poly really brings it up a notch. I love it. I'm probably going to be doing this all the time now. In particular, the white in it, I feel like is kind of special. But yeah, so I'm just sealing the entire piece with this, and the top will get extra coats, the body will just get 2. Top will be somewhere around the 3, and then I'll probably even go over that with wax, just because I like to extra double duty protect tops of things that are really going to get glasses set on them. But you can tell as soon as you put the poly on with the shimmers, all those extra colors that you blended into the piece really stand out and look just so, I don't know, just so cloudy. I can't describe what it is. It's just beautiful. And of course, I'm just showing you, we do sand between every single coat. Vitally important if you want a really smooth finish, especially when you're doing things with, I wouldn't necessarily call this metallic, but it's almost metallic. It definitely has a shimmery feel to it. It's more shimmery than it is metallic. The second coat goes on so much more easily than the first, and for this one I actually go in the opposite direction. So the first coat I would do right to left, and then the second coat I would do up and down. That way, if you could potentially see any brush strokes, it doesn't look like it when you're finished. And then, of course, I have to take 3 other glazing dusts, and I've got gold, bronze, and silver in them, and that is mixed into poly just to do the detail lines. So this I did 2 coats of, and you can do less or more depending on how much glazing dust you put in your poly. So if you want it super opaque, you add more glazing dust. If you want it more of a thin shimmer like I did on the top coat, you add less. But this is getting put on with just literally a makeup brush because I want to keep it in the fine details. And since I've already sealed the piece, anywhere I've gone over where I don't want to get the detail color, I can wipe off with just a little wet wipe. So that's the bonus of sealing your pieces in between steps, because you can always kind of go back and fix anything that you mess up on. And you guys know I don't have time for tape.
Oh hi, Taryn here, and we've got a couple nightstands, end tables, very large side tables that are just, I think, some of my most favorites that I've done. They're so just beautifully muted, but also kind of ethereal in the finish. I tried my best to capture it on camera. It was incredibly hard because you just can't get sparkles on camera the right way. But, oh, so lovely. I'm gonna struggle with not keeping these ones. I don't know. I'll have to re-look at my nightstands and see if I could swap them out. I don't know. You think my husband would let me do these ones? They're not very masculine. Anyways, so this is my most favorite wallpaper. I will link it. Sometimes they're out. It just comes and goes in stock, so you might be able to get it, you might not, just depends. But you can keep an eye out for it, and there's also multiple colors of this kind as well if you, say, wanted a darker print, but it's kind of the same floral stuff. And then all of the super beautiful shimmery goodness is done with the Chalk Mountain glazing dust, and that stuff just does so many things. I can't even say how awesome it is, so highly recommend that. Okay, here's the part where I just say thank you so much. I'm almost at 4,000. The last I checked was I'm at 37. I don't know, but I just think you guys are incredible. Thank you so much for watching me just make furniture pretty, I guess. I am blown away. Thank you so much for the comments. I get the most amazing, wonderful humans commenting in my comment section, and I can't thank you enough because I've heard horror stories and you guys are just not that. And I'm so thankful. Okay, enough of the stuff. Let's get into some photos of these guys. You say, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you so much.
You say it to the camera.
I did say it.